Welcome back to Going Dark, a podcast about Netflix's sci-fi series, Dark. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga, and today we're discussing Season 3, Episode 5, entitled Life and Death. So, Dan, what did you think of this episode?
To me, this is clearly one of the best episodes of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I still have some critiques about it. In some ways, I almost feel like we went from too slow to too fast. I understand why thematically it made a lot of sense to have all these huge things happen in one episode.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the Jonas death thing, which is the most interesting mythology thing,
right?
It was kind of lessened by the fact that the other two deaths were so emotionally draining.
Yes. Oh yeah.
This is the darkest, no pun intended, episode ever, I would argue.
Yeah, completely agree. I walked away from my first watch being devastated emotionally.
Yeah.
And then also I was so confused about how Jonas being potentially dead would make any sense with the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wait, I'm sorry. I'm emotionally devastated. Please don't make time travel a thing right now.
One thing at a time.
Right, which is not what that's just not how this show works. So that was all on me for being
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like I said, it's I would say there's definitely been very slow episodes. I feel like we talked about 2 and 3 felt pretty slow. And then suddenly it was this big hit in the face. And again, that made for a super intense episode of TV that I'm glad we're doing one episode again because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But
I can't imagine talking about 2 episodes in this podcast, or even frankly watching more than one episode this week. I just couldn't. I really on rewatch I got a lot more out of it other than just emotional problems. But yeah, we were able to talk it out a little bit and I could understand, wait, my questions aren't just me not understanding something. These are questions the show is setting up.
Yeah.
Which is why
and some answers. We're getting some answers.
We're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things where I remember very early on in us podcasting, someone left a comment you might want to make charts.
Mm-hmm.
And I, for the most part, I haven't felt that way until now.
Yeah, I get it.
And I'm okay, I need to know what people, who knows what and who has said what and how that relates to other people's lies or truths or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, and this is also the first time where we rewatched an episode and skipped over part of it. And that's the Elizabeth scene.
Yeah.
Because couldn't handle watching it a second time.
No, I'm we know what happens.
Yeah.
Let's just.
Yep.
She's in the trailer and then she
goes to the cave.
And then we see her covered in blood in the trailer, and that was we just had to skip those 5. It felt like 5 minutes. I think it was a long
intense.
scene.
It was incredibly well done.
Oh my god!
The actress killed it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that might be my favorite piece of acting we've seen on the show.
It was really good, but it felt very intimate and very uncomfortable.
Yep.
Yes.
So something I want to talk to you about before we get into the recap is, I know maybe after season 1 or mid-season 2, we had a discussion about how this show was tragic and sad, but didn't feel grim dark or shock value-y dark or whatever. Do you feel they went too far in this episode?
I want to say yes. But at the same time, I understand the decisions that they're making, if that makes sense. I understand why they're making the choices they're making. So if I can see the rationale, is it really the idea with grimdark is things being unnecessarily edgy or unnecessarily humanity is awful or people aren't worth it. And I'm I don't really feel that way. It's just hard to watch sometimes. Or hard to palate all at once.
I mean, so to me, part of why I don't feel that way is the Katarina scene. On paper, I'm so her abusive mother ultimately murders her is wow, that's super messed up.
Yeah.
But also it was a character driven scene.
Right.
That felt I don't know if earned is the right way. Well, I guess earned.
It felt properly
Yeah.
set up in this kind of show, in this kind of, world, I guess. I mean, it's tragic. It's a tragedy. The show is nothing but tragedy.
Yeah. And as far as the Peter thing, like, I think it kind of helps that we had been told about it ahead of time.
Oh man, if we hadn't been warned about that, I don't know. I think maybe then it would have put me off. More.
It would have been more about the shock value.
Yeah. But the fact that Noah knew this would happen and we as an audience just kind of see it, are waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way they decide to go about it, I never want to watch that again.
Yeah.
But
very well done.
It is in line. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's rationalized. I can rationalize all these choices.
Yep. Cool. All right. So let us get into the recap. So, and I want to mention also, I didn't do points of interest. I'm sorry, guys. But the reason I didn't do points of interest is I wrote a very thorough recap this time around. And I feel like we're going to hit on absolutely everything.
Right.
So, that's that. But we're going to do colors at the end and feedback. So let's start. The way I did this was chronologically by Earth. So starting with Earth 1, 1987. We have Katarina planning to steal a key card from her mom to break out Ulrich. He apologizes for everything that happened. Good moment. I do wish we had a little bit more interaction between the two of them, but like the actors like created enough subtext there. I feel like it worked.
What else is there to say?
Yeah.
Like we know the emotions that are going through them.
Yep. And it was so sad at the end when old Ulrich was just like standing there.
I know. I mean, like, obviously we knew she would fail because Mikkel doesn't come back.
Well, see, it wasn't obvious to me that she would fail getting Ulrich out. I knew she would never get Mikkel, but I thought it was possible that she and Ulrich would like escape somewhere or something.
They wouldn't if he escaped, then they would find a way to get Mikkel.
Yeah,
like that's the thing to me where I don't know.
Yeah,
it was just
that's fair.
Like at worst, he would go back. I mean, I didn't expect her end to be quite like this, but I was like, okay, they'll get caught or stopped or failed, and then she'll be arrested too because they set up her with the police as well. And then we're like, okay, she's just going to be in the psych ward as well. Like, and that's the other tragedy. So, I mean, they didn't do that.
Yep. Katarina jumps her mom, but she fights back, and Katarina says, "Mom, stop it." Her mom ultimately kills her, thinking she's her aborted demon baby. It sounds ridiculous, but it's really good.
Right. That's what she thinks.
Yeah.
And where we leave off with Helena, like as a child, and where she ends up, I mean, that's emotionally, mentally, like with her beliefs, like her story is a tragedy too. It's not all about Katarina. And it's just, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. It's a very difficult topic.
When we were walking, and I was talking about like, well, a lot of people are abused and don't become like this.
Exactly.
But at the same time, like you get how she became like, like ultimately she's not I mean, she's sort of sympathetic, but it's like she's just a human.
Right, right. I mean, that's the thing where Katarina's really the one who, I know she like attacks her mother here, but she's the one who broke the cycle of violence against her.
She is heroic in as much as you can be on the show.
Right, right. However, I can still, the reason the term cycle of violence exists is because of, because it's a thing. So it's just like, I can see why Helena's traumatized in the way that she's traumatized. Yeah. I'm not rooting for her as a character because she is abusive to a character I do have more sympathy for because she isn't abusive. Like, it's just a complicated
Well,
thing.
And the other thing is they did a good job, at least for me, where while they were fighting, I thought it was possible that she would kill her mom, and that would be the emotional thing, like because she didn't mean to kill her mom, and that would be like a big deal to her. And as soon as they got to the beach, I was like, oh, well, here's how the pendant ended up on the beach. Yeah. And so that's something that we're left with too. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. And like, oh, our happy romantic pendant came from this.
Screwed up. That's so screwed up that Martha has it and it's from her. Oh, it's so screwed up.
So it started from
Egon
giving it to Hannah, who gave it to this little kid who's being abused. And then
her daughter, who's
Martha's
mom, pulls it off of her as she's being killed by her.
Yep.
And then it gets buried in the sand.
Becomes a nice romantic moment.
Beach and becomes a
weird
gift between the granddaughter and the daughter of the mistress who received it. Like, what the hell?
So just to dig the knife in deeper, that same night, Mikkel and Enos return home. And, yep. Do you think that's the last time we see them? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm done calling that, Dan. Yeah. I don't do that prediction anymore. Yeah. I'm wrong 100% of the time.
And then to double knife you, later Helena beats young Katarina for having a hickey and says that she should have gotten rid of her too. So this is the thing that really makes her an extra villain at the end of this.
I mean, calling her a villain is
by the end, she's a good villain. You understand how they became a villain. It's
just Katarina is having consensual sex with Ulrich. And she came up to her mother after she saw her mother distressed and bloody and tried to help her. It's that thing of the child still wanting the love from the parent and still
caring in a way.
Caring.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely see that even adult Katarina, the way she's Mom, please, she's still, despite everything,
cares about her
and probably loves her in her twisted way, no matter how much hurt she caused. And that's just so freaking tragic. Yep. It's awful.
Definitely.
God, screw this show, man. I don't know.
Meanwhile, young Charlotta comes home to her grandpa Tannhaus, and he tells her about how he had a son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter. They were in a car crash that killed the parents, and the kid vanished. The same night that happened, two strange women came and dropped off Charlotta with her watch. This freaks out Charlotta, and she runs off. So, a lot to talk about here. We have later in the episode Elizabeth and Charlotta going off in the time travel to do something. I would assume that is to kill his kid. I mean, and daughter-in-law, and to
cause
the baby,
the car accident,
and then drop off baby Charlotta. Although, where would they have? They don't have baby Charlotta. Yeah. So that's unless maybe it's Claudia and Eva that drop it off. Well, the thing is that we know both Charlotta and Eva have the watch right now. So it could be either side of that.
Yes.
Whoever it is, they clearly caused the car accident. Who is the child is the other question.
Yeah. You were oh, they never found the body of the baby girl. Yeah. She's not dead. She went somewhere.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I was a little taken aback by this, to be honest. They were introducing another who is the someone at this point in the show. But future girl, I don't know.
So here's the thing. Part of me is well, she's not on the genealogy map. So are they going to introduce a mystery party who's not etched into the floor? If she's really so important,
well, I will say,
would somebody she not be part of the plan? Or somebody
mentioned in the comments that we shouldn't take the floor thing as 100% the entire thing and all facts.
Right, so that could lend itself to that she really is going to be a potential fifth party, so to speak.
We'll see. Yeah, it's interesting though. I didn't expect that.
No.
All right, and then later on we have Charlotta meeting Peter for the first time and having their weird, awkward, flirty interaction.
That was so freaking weird. How do you think people can be brought back from the dead? Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Peter. The introduction came after that. Freaking, she's so goth.
No, and so his mother died and told him about Helga at the end there, and so that's why he moved to Vinden.
He'd never known about him or met him before. So
glad we got young Peter finally. I thought that would be coming pretty soon, and I said it would happen in the episode where Peter dies.
Yep.
So there you go.
You called it.
All right, next up.
Yes. So on Earth 1 in 2020, Claudia buries her daughter before meeting Claudia 2.
Bum, bum, bum.
She wants her to join Eva's side, the side of light.
Ooh.
She tells Claudia that she cannot trust Jonas. He wants to destroy both worlds while Eva wants to save them both. Jonas opened the passage in 2020. His older self had closed it in 2019 after it had been opened for the first time in summer of 1986. All 3 times, cesium was left behind, a component of dark matter. The cesium has a 33-year half-life, and cesium is always brought back into the tunnel before it has fully decayed. So it expands exponentially and must exist like that for all eternity, like growing in radioactivity.
And that's what it ultimately causes the apocalypse.
Yeah. So that way, everything must happen as it always has, and it must repeat itself with every loop.
Yep.
So.
All right. So I think we kind of understand this, but it still created a lot more questions for me. First of all, interesting that like Claudia too says they're the side of light, because I believe Noah used to call himself the side of light, and he was with Adam.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's when you're on the side of a cause, you want your cause. You believe your cause is just. You think you are on the side of good. And if you're here and you're opposing someone else, well, they must be evil. They must be the dark side.
And so the thing that I'm like, what you take away from this episode is that, and it was kind of things we'd known before, but a little bit more solidified, I feel like, which is Adam wants to destroy both worlds by untying the knot and creating a new world, I assume, the paradise we heard about. Yeah. Whereas Eva is trying to preserve the knot and preserve the 2 worlds. But that means that she seems to have given up on stopping the apocalypse, which I don't know why that would have been.
Right.
Unless it is all about preserving unknown and knowing that without that knot, there would be no unknown. But that's still up for question. And then my other question is, why would Claudia 1 want everything to happen as it always has when she just finished burying Regina?
Right.
Like, I don't understand why she doesn't react that way or ask that question.
Yeah, I wish that Claudia 1 had said more. Just had more of her, like, she's supposed to be smart, and here she's just like, but so and so told me. Like, I understand she's confused. And the next point is like Claudia 2 gives Claudia 1 the book of knowledge and says she needs to guide Jonas, Noah, and Elizabeth over and over again. And I'm just like, but why is she not applying? Like, why is she taking this person at face value too, just because, like, well,
even if she takes her at face value, it just is the logical question of, but how do I save Regina?
Right.
And if Claudia 2 is like, I'm sorry, there's no way,
why would she?
Why would she do all the things she's doing? Like, what is she living for? Why is she doing everything she can to preserve the world and the knot where her kid dies?
I don't understand. I guess what it comes down to for me is I don't really understand now what Eva is doing. If the whole thing is she's lying and saying, oh, I'm going to save both worlds. And then it's like, no, she can only save one and she's going to prioritize.
No, I think that part is a lie. I think she's trying to preserve both worlds and preserve she's trying to make what happened and stay that way always. And that makes sense if you follow what Unknown has been doing.
Right, because he's facilitating it, continuing in both places to make sure he's making sure that the reactor gets built, so that, he's the one who wrote the diary and was taking the notes.
I mean, the thing that's a little confusing, though, too, is that, like, Noah and Adam also had a version of this journal.
Well, they take it from old Claudia.
Well, no, they took the extra pages.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, they already had a version that they were following, and they did a lot, especially Noah, did a lot of work to make sure what happened. So that's a little confusing, too. But, like, I guess in order to get to a certain point where he could untie the knot, he had to make sure other things occurred so that Adam would get to where Adam is, I guess.
That's how I've been understanding it. I feel like at this point, more or less, I understand Adam and that side. I still am very, and I feel like we're supposed to be confused by Eva.
I feel pretty solidly that she is trying to preserve things as they are. Why would Claudia? Well, I think that we just don't know enough about how Eva evolves as a person to have that answer yet. Claudia, I feel like I understand pretty well, and I'm like, why would you want to preserve things? I don't get it. Unless she's just like scientifically minded enough that she knows she has to. But like,
well, the idea of Eva wants to save everyone actually does sound like undoing things. It's just preserving both worlds.
I don't know if she wants to save everyone as much as she wants to save them from the end of existence by what Adam's trying to do. I guess so. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. Yes. I like how I felt more confident in my understanding immediately after watching, and then like 24 hours go by and I was like, what is happening all over again? And I'm trying here, folks. It's just like there's a lot of threads.
Thread.
Yeah, that was on purpose. So meanwhile, Peter and Elizabeth head to look at the dead again, but she freaks out and says she's sick of it. Their family is dead. Let's give up on this. She heads home alone, leaving Peter to check out the bodies. She gets to the trailer, finds the guy ransacking it. He hasn't eaten for a long time. Not that I want to justify his actions for why he's doing this. But
that's why before he like really started doing stuff, I was like, maybe he's just a burglar and he just needed food.
Right. And that's one of the reasons I didn't really want to rewatch it, where I was like, I don't need, this is where I think it was actually unnecessarily dark. If you're going to have this, don't play with us of like, is she going to be assaulted or not? Like, I didn't really appreciate that. Like, the fear of will this happen, and then when he does attempt to assault her, I'm just like so not on board with why that was toyed with.
Well, the other thing about that is that like, as far as if you're going like grimdark with it, is I wasn't sure if what they were trying to portray there is that like when pushed to the limit and you're in an apocalyptic world, people who wouldn't have normally done this will do these kinds of things, or they're just like, he's just a pedophile.
Right. I think it's the latter.
I hope it's the latter. I hope that. No,
I think it's awful people find ways to survive, and unfortunately might be the ones left because they're willing to. They have no value for human life, and
see, I don't know if that's what they're saying, or if what they're saying is that if you're in that situation long enough, you just give up on any sort of morality.
Well, listen, it's one thing to steal food from like a child and have given up your morality in that way. It's another thing to try to sexually take advantage of her. You're not starving for sex in an apocalypse.
I just hope I was just worried that they were implying
and that's why if he had just like stolen their food, killed her so he could live in the trailer, that would or like tried to kill her or Peter so that he could have a shelter, that would be one thing. But the fact that they took it in this direction makes it a whole other conversation.
It might not have been necessary, as far as like, it could have just been he creeped her out, he's eating the food, Peter comes in, and then they fight. And
Peter is afraid of what
he might do. They fight, he kills Peter, which is why Elizabeth has to kill him. Like,
that frankly would have been enough.
But I mean, it's not a sugar-coated world. Like,
it isn't. It isn't. But I don't know. It was hard to watch, and I guess that was on purpose. So they fight. Peter comes in, and it was really well choreographed for such a tight space. It was an impressively well done thing. I hope they handled it behind the scenes with sensitivity, but we have no control over that. And the burglar kills Peter. Elizabeth kills him, and a broken Elizabeth like goes to the caves to find Noah.
What I find extra fascinating about all this is that she doesn't know Noah knew this would happen. And so, like, he let it happen because it's what had to happen. But how would that have changed their interactions? And
she wouldn't have gone. I don't think she would have gone to him. Probably. Why would she trust him ever? Oh, God.
Very interesting.
Messed up, man.
Then we time jump once again to 2053, still on Earth 1. Adam talks to Charlotta and says, "One day until we can untie this knot forever, but you must do your part. Eva won't win. Her world doesn't deserve to be saved any more than ours does." So this is fascinating similarly as to why does Charlotta want their worlds to end? Why would she agree that they don't deserve to live?
Right.
Unless it's that she hopes that she can create a new world where there isn't the apocalypse and she can be with her family, but like also her family probably like none of them would exist or what, you know, like
yeah.
So
how could she exist? How could Elizabeth? They're a paradox.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Unless by untying the knot, Adam thinks that they can preserve the lives without having to.
Yeah, maybe he thinks they can travel to the new paradise,
right?
Or something.
If you exist, you will exist in the paradise.
Maybe, or maybe he's lying. Who knows? But
I don't know. Remember when I said I understand Adam a bit better? Never mind.
Well, I do understand what he wants.
Right.
I just don't know if he's lying, who he's lying to, and who he isn't lying to,
or what that so-called paradise is going to look like.
Yeah.
What he thinks it's going to look like.
I just think he thinks anything's better than this.
I mean, I don't blame him for thinking that. This place sucks.
Pendant.
Damn you, Pendant.
So then, like I said earlier, Elizabeth and Charlotta go off into the dark matter, and old Franziska, hugs them goodbye and is sad.
Yeah, it was a sweet scene, and it's just like really weird that Charlotta is just still Charlotta, middle-aged, while her children are like older than her, her age / her mom.
I wish we got more of old Franziska.
Yeah.
Very minimal for her. Yeah.
So we traveled to Earth 2. It's 2019. Charlotta tells Peter that the shift schedule from 1986 confirms Helga could be involved with the murders. Ulrich was right, and her saying that gets Peter really pissed off.
Yeah, both of the Ulrich thing and the Helga thing.
Accusing Helga. Meanwhile, Jonas is upset he slept with Marta too.
Or just...
No one made you.
Conflicted. I don't know. Yeah.
It wasn't my Marta. Martha. They head downstairs to a freaked out Katarina and they leave her there. They just Marta
bye.
just hugs her and that ends the argument. And then they head off to the power plant.
Sorry, I must make everything right.
Yeah. I'm just if my mom was yelling at me and I just hugged her but did not respond in any other way, I would have been grounded. Even
especially if you came down with this random boy.
Oh my God, some random boy. Yeah, it was just very funny to me being like, man, German parenting is really chill. Except when it isn't.
Murderous.
Yeah. All right. So Eva told Jonas to stop the barrels from being opened, but Marta gets a cut on the fence, and Jonas remembers that cut from the Martha who brought him to Earth 2. So it was like a fresh cut on that one's face.
Yeah.
He realizes that things are happening the same way again, and Eva is using him to end the world. He turns around to go after Eva, and Marta too reluctantly follows.
So this is his big character growth right before he gets shot. Is he finally is like, you know what? I've been a patsy for one too many episodes.
And I've seen my future self be a patsy too. Yeah. Well, this ends here.
Well, turns out you're still a patsy.
Yeah, seriously.
But
Marta too is hurt that Jonas wants to go back to his world. He says last night was a mistake. He's wrong here. She kisses him and is like, oh yeah, that's wrong.
So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing where I kind of feel like they... I guess by design of the amount of episodes and things like that, had to really rush Marta to's falling in love with him.
Yeah.
She is so upset and is like, I can't believe you'd want to leave. I'm like, that's his world. He's been here for 2 days.
Yeah.
I understand she's probably just had sex for the first time, maybe, unless she could have with Gillian. I don't know. But she seems very attached and it really matters to her like a teenager would. And I'm just like, but dude, I know that you care about it, but this isn't his world.
Except for, here's the thing, they were fated to be together.
Yeah.
In a way. And not just Jonas and Marta we're Jonas with his Marta with Marta 1. It's we're the perfect match.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, Jonas with Marta is they are each other's two halves of this.
I guess you kind of have
spiral.
To go with the Romeo and Juliet sense of love here a little bit because it's fated to be and whatever. But it just felt a little bit
fast.
I can't believe you really want to go there. And I'm like, yeah, he does.
It's yeah, but then we're not incest in this world. It's oh, that's a good point. That's some good advertising for why he should stay. But he loves incest Martha. So they ultimately head to Eva's lair. I didn't realize you called it a lair in this outline.
I'm so confused about where this lair is. Because they go into the caves.
Yeah, to get there.
Am I supposed to understand where this is?
It must be in the caves instead of being under
but where?
the church.
Is it? Yeah,
they carved it out. The unknown carved it out with his younger self and his older self, and they just took care of it.
Okay.
They also painted the Renaissance painting of Adam and Eva. They're quite the artistes. They're not just murderers. Yes. When they arrive, Jonas is surrounded by 3 more Martas and shot by the pregnant Marta.
Well, we assume is the pregnant Marta.
Like, we don't have that 100%. But the thing is that, and I've noticed this a few episodes ago, I was like, older Marta, middle-aged Marta, they have this scar across their eye. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really match up with the tiny little scar that was, it could have been left by just that, fence scratch. So something clearly happens, unless we have a Marta 3.
I don't think we do. I think something happens between when Adam tells her the thing
that she's pregnant and that's the unknown, and this that hurts her to the point where she has this scar or injury, I should say, and agrees that Jonas must die.
Well, I think it's that she knows that her younger self needs to see Jonas die to send her on the path
back to Adam.
The whole path that she goes on in general.
Right. Jonas accomplished what he was sent to this world for.
And that's a semen.
Inseminate Marta. And he gives the current Marta to the pendant as she holds him in her arms.
Yeah.
Yes.
As he dies.
Right on the infinity. Like right there.
So I don't even really have a theory here. I'm just like, I'm not like flabbergasted because obviously we knew that middle-aged Jonas didn't remember this stuff.
Right.
I'm still a little bit wondering if Jonas actually dies or if like Marta 2 like runs away after something and then like somebody unknown comes out and like saves him.
If by saving Jonas there's like some brain damage so he forgets ever coming to this world.
Which would make more sense if she shot him in the head. But I don't know. I still feel like it would be out of the norm of this show to actually create memory loss, which then creates the idea of, is there another Jonas than Earth 1 Jonas? Do we bring in Earth 3? I don't think we do.
Well, that's the outlier. I mean, having an Earth 3 would solve a lot of things.
Well, it wouldn't because even if there was an Earth 3, why would both Jonases we've seen think they're Earth 1 Jonas? So I just introducing an Earth 3 on episode 6 seems crazy to me. I don't think they're gonna do that. They spent all this season setting up Earth 2.
That's true.
So I don't think they're gonna do that. I wonder if there is an Earth 2 Jonas that they've like hidden in some way. Or that they brought him to, like, maybe Hannah thought she had a miscarriage, but like they would still have to have Mikkel time. Like maybe they hid that Mikkel does time travel or something, and
Mikkel time traveled at a different
time travels at a different point. Michael does marry Hannah, but he dies earlier, and then she ends up with Ulrich, and that she thought she had a miscarriage, but then they brought Jonas to Earth 1. Or I don't know. Like that seems ridiculous too, but I just don't understand how both of them can think they're Earth 1 Jonas unless they were like somehow.
Well, the thing is that the stranger, middle-aged Jonas, remembers events. He remembers his friends and these relationships and things like that. So he had to have lived a certain kind of life following Claudia.
There is cloning. Let's talk about that. That's what happened. Or that somehow he gets split in two by the dark matter. I don't know. I don't have any reason. Wouldn't that have had to happen already? He just didn't know. I don't know. I have no good answer to this at all.
My only answer is somehow Jonas doesn't die here.
But the thing that seems closest to understandable is that he doesn't actually die and somehow loses his memory. But that still seems weird that he would lose his memory. Like, I can't think of a way that they would do that would seem in line with the show. they haven't introduced any science fiction technology other than time travel.
Oh, okay. And interdimensional travel too.
Yeah, okay. But it's all tied together. It's all the dark matter. It's all the cesium. There's not like they also have spaceships or something. Like it's...
I don't know. I'm sure that there could be an explanation that they could force. I have no idea what the next episode is going to bring.
Yeah. I'm fascinated.
If they do some kind of scientific, mumbo jumbo that would lead to memory loss, I wouldn't be like angry or really upset that it's out of character for the show.
I think somehow there's more than one Jonas. I don't know how that is. I can't wrap my head around it.
Right.
But that still seems like more likely to me than that there's a memory loss thing. Because it wouldn't have to just be memory loss. Jonas, old middle-aged Jonas, would have to have new memories put in place. Otherwise, he'd have a weird memory gap, and he would probably talk about that when Martha 2 came and was like, yeah.
Unless Claudia just like reasoned it away somehow, was like, actually, you've been unconscious for weeks or something like that. You were in a coma. Like,
yeah. I guess also...
They have Claudia 2 kind of manipulating Claudia 1. So if they delivered an unconscious Jonas to Claudia 1 and were like, take care of him...
Well, the thing that's interesting about the Claudia 2 thing is that my guess is that Claudia 1 initially influences Claudia 2 because Claudia 2 influences Claudia 1. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's just a loop. Because I assume older Claudia 1 goes to Claudia 2 with what Claudia 2 had told her younger self. Unless
Eva just does that to Claudia 2.
But I just But it seems like what the show would do.
It doesn't it? So, Claudia, the ultimate pawn.
Yeah, of herself. Of different, her older self and her alternate self.
Seriously. All right, so this is our recap.
Yeah.
We're not lost, but...
We're happily playing in the field of confusion.
Yeah, that's a very nice way of putting it.
But next up, we're going to talk about some colors.
Ooh, it's so colorful.
Here's yellow. I have a maroon.
That's nice. Anyway, so let's start with the color blue. And we're wondering if this signifies male death. So it is worn by the unknowns. It is the wallpaper in the murder room, the bunker murder room. Tronta wears it and kills Regina later. Yana is often wrapped in blue.
So like wrapped in Mads' death.
Yeah. And old Ulrich wears blue.
Which, we'll see. Probably will die before the show's over, I'd assume. Yeah. So, I mean, all of our interpretations we're going to talk about, I in no way feel confident about. But at least there is a pattern developing.
Yeah. There's also in the previous episode, we see a blue lamp right before the unknown trio murders burnt.
Yep.
So it's like blue is there when men die or boys. So the other color we have here is yellow, as Dan pointed out. We're wondering if this means innocence. So Jonas and Martha, they wear the yellow jacket before, things start going wrong. In the Ariadne play, there's yellow. The barrels are yellow, which is a little bit more
That's the thing that's the most confusing.
I'm just like, it is just a byproduct. It itself is not the problem. It is how it's manipulated later that causes the dark matter. The school doors on Earth 1, it's like
young, whatever.
They're safe there, but then as they spend less time there, things go wrong. And Mads' shirt. So Mads being the innocent victim.
I also wouldn't be shocked if it literally just meant important. The main character wears yellow. The barrels are super important.
Mads, being discovered sets things
in motion. Or it could be like caution.
Yeah.
Like that would definitely work for the barrels, and like also like Eva and Jonas are both like actually someone you should be a little wary of.
That makes sense.
Interesting ideas.
Lastly, we have red, and does this mean female death? Agnes wore red when she killed Noah.
I don't know if it's when she killed, but she was introduced all in bright red. So that was like my first impression of her.
Yeah. And she kills Noah. So she's, you might think like, oh, it's vampy, but then she does that. Claudia wore red and she killed her dad. Also just like the red blood on her hands, staining
red
her
lipstick
hands.
obviously was introduced early on about murder.
Red lipstick. Claudia's secretary wears red and she's murdered. The dying Regina is bathed in red light. Katarina's mom is wearing like a reddish pink jacket as she kills Katarina. And 50s Hannah wore red.
So it was like, as she left from the 50s, she's all wearing red. So I'm like, okay, what is she about to do? Or is she about to be
happen
killed?
To her.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the one I feel the most confident about.
Yeah. I think the blue is pretty. It really is. To me, it's just yellow. That's like, what are you? What could you be?
Well, I also wouldn't be surprised if it means more. Like everything means multiple things. And,
All right. So those are our color theories. Let's move on to some feedback. All right. So from Master Onion North on YouTube, I think the point of alternative Martha seeing Martha in the forest was likely to establish that they're basically flip sides of the same coin, or more accurately, the same person. And from Make Engel, the black stuff on Michael/Marta is not paint, it's the time travel liquid/dark matter.
Okay, so that makes more sense, especially we were talking about, like, why would Marta have paint on her?
Right.
So that at least explains that. She has the venom symbiote on her.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's supposed to be more of like it's like the deja vu thing to an extreme of seeing visions of your alternate self.
It's the shadow self. It's the shadow reality.
Yeah.
Why not?
Reaching out into you from the beyond the grave.
Ivana writes, here's a point of interest for you to think about. How is it possible that Eva has a St. Christopher pendant, which she says Jonas gave her years ago?
Which we saw in episode 5.
Right.
Yeah.
But we saw that middle-aged Jonas had the St. Christopher pendant in season 2, and so did Adam. How many pendants are there? If Jonas gave the pendant to Marta too, how does older and even older Jonas still have it?
Yeah, which would again potentially imply a third world. That would be the thing that's most surprising to me, honestly.
I mean, if we know that Hannah still time travels back to be with Egon I know some, as you said, someone.
No, but Hannah doesn't have the pendant anymore because she gave it to Helena.
No, on Earth 2, if Hannah still time travels and ends up with Egon and Egon still buys it for her and she still has an interaction, what if the journey of that pendant is slightly different and somehow Jonas ends up with middle-aged Jonas ends up with that one. So he's not ending up with the one that Eva still has, but somehow he
gets Earth 2's pendant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If Earth 2's pendant then becomes a factor.
Yeah. Okay.
And travels with Jonas, who might not have memories of Earth 2. So he might not realize that he gave it up and therefore thinks that he still has the original one that Marta found in the beach.
Okay. Yeah.
So Ivana continues, why would Jonas give the pendant to Marta too if she is just a rebound, when that pendant is a sacred remembrance / symbol of his relationship with Marta for him? And is it even possible to be just a rebound for yourself or someone who is basically the same person, just from another world? Yep. If he is drawn to her because she reminds him of herself, isn't he still drawn to her? Yeah, I mean, this is what we're kind of talking about, of like fate. Well,
yeah. I mean, so I had a longer talk with Ivana about this stuff. I just thought it was interesting as far as I think that he can be a rebound if he prefers one over the other. The two Martas have different life experiences. Yeah. They have different history. They look slightly different.
Yeah.
If you can prefer one to the other, she can be a rebound. But then Ivana countered with, well, like Marta could prefer like Jonas before all this happened and didn't have a neck hanging thing versus Jonas now. And it's like, it's like, what is identity and all, like, and I brought up how like it has a lot of real world allegories as far as being like, oh, you're not the person I fell in love with after 20 years goes by. Or
just someone has a traumatic event and it affects them and they change as a result of it. And you mourn the person that was innocent, the person who wasn't traumatized and burdened down,
Yeah, so I mean, maybe rebound isn't the right word as much as like trying to recap, like sleeping with her because she reminds her of who she was, or like it's so
of who
weird.
She was to him.
Yeah,
that's the thing. He is a stranger to her. He has memories with a person who is not there. I mean, it really is. We have real world examples of like people who have like traumatic head injuries or strokes or, things like mental deterioration. And it's like you are faced with loving a person who like biologically is different. And for some people, it's like, oh, I'll still love the idea of you and take care of you, but it's not the same person to them anymore.
I mean, I guess it gets to the root of identity, and it's like, is Martha 1 and Martha 2 the same person? Or are they fundamentally different people because you are the sum of your experiences? But also, how many of your experiences are actually that different? I don't like. But then, if you're the sum of your experiences, then you're constantly creating a new identity as you get more experiences. It's so interesting.
It's a very philosophical discussion, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah. Right. But I guess ultimately, I'm just like, he didn't sleep with Martha 2 for Martha 2. He slept with Martha 2
because she reminded him
of herself. I don't know. Whatever.
Of the Martha he knew.
Yeah.
But this is the only Jonas that Martha 2 has ever, or that she's ever known.
Yeah.
So she takes him at face value. Yeah. Yes, presumably. Fair enough. Maybe there was a secret Jonas. I don't know. All right. So now about Agnes. Remember that Claudia gave Agnes the newspaper clipping about her own death and told her to give it to her, not now, but in the future. And Agnes was, at the time, trying to get back into Sic Mundus and get Adam to trust her. So this is the oldest version of Agnes we have seen. She has already killed Noah. Now she's about to go and meet with Claudia and give her the newspaper clipping and probably make a baby Tronta. It's possible she hadn't even given birth to him yet. It's in her personal timeline when she brought him to Vinden.
Which that just kind of blew my mind.
Whoa.
The idea of that when she brought him to Vinden, she hadn't given birth to him yet breaks my head.
Because he spent some time in like an orphanage, like in a children's home, he said. Yeah. So what if the Agnes who came for him
was a different Agnes?
Was an Agnes that
was younger.
Wow.
That's weird.
I don't know what to do with this information.
That is weird.
You're right. Sure, that's possible. I don't want to think about it. I don't have room for this in my life in my life right now.
Oh man. All right. Well, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. I think even if it wasn't it, it's gonna be it. But it is.
Well, let's wrap this up so I can go watch the next episode. Finally.
Yeah. Yes. Lord it over me.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. As always, please rate us or review us on various podcast platforms. Send us emails at ourpodcastfeedback@gmail.com or leave comments in the YouTube video down below. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.